Hello, everyone, and happy Friday evening. How are you guys? Hello, hello, hello. As everybody is coming in, I hope everybody's had a great week and a great end to your Friday. As we head into the weekend, and hope you have something fun planned, regardless where you are. Hopefully, you're having good weather. It is very, very windy where I'm at. Like, if you go outside, your hair is going to be like this big because the wind is just like crazy. I was thinking about how the term March comes in like a lion, and I'm like, it definitely has done that here. So anyway, but we are going to dive in tonight, and we are going to put this whole week together, and I'm going to talk about resumes, letters of recommendation. We're going to talk about decisions, choosing decisions, and about paying for college, a little bit about that money piece. So we're going to jump into all that. But before I do, I wanted to just share, I really do go through and I look at all the homework. I read all the things you guys are doing. I've love learning about all of your kids and all the great things. But both of the two people that posted in the homework today made me really smile. So I wanted to share. So I wanted to say to Laura, I'm quite impressed. Her son does edits and knows exactly what he wants to do. He loves history and politics and wants to put film editing together and end up producing film for political coverage. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. And evidently he's already been hired to lots of people. So maybe I should talk to him to help me do some video for my business. I don't know, but it sounds like he's a pretty talented young man. So congratulations to him. And then Maria made me really smile because her son's a sophomore, and we all know sophomores are still exploring. You're trying to figure all of these things out, right? Like, what is the right thing to be doing, and trying to figure out exactly what way you want to go. And so he's like into sports, and he's into art, and he's into entrepreneurship. But since he doesn't know what he wants to do, his plan is to move to Hawaii and surf every day. And so I had to laugh. I thought that was like a really cute response. And her response to him was that she's hoping she can put a more stable and structured plan in place for him. So I am hoping that through this week, as you guys are diving in and learning more and more about the college admissions process and what the schools are looking for and so forth, that you are able to take away a lot of great content to help with your own student. And I hope that we'll continue our relationship together. So let's jump in. Let me get my slides here ready to go. And we're going to talk college admissions, right? So again, we're on day 5. I cannot believe it. And again, we're going to talk about the journey, just as I mentioned a second ago. So the thing I want you to remember, and I think you all know this, is that every family is on a different journey. And your journey and your child's journey is going to be unique to you and to them. And there's one thing that all of those who have gone through this college admissions process in the past and will go through it in the future, is that if you implement a game plan and you have that piece put in place, then you're going to have a greater success in really managing and getting through this college admissions process. I'm going to see, does that help? I was trying to see if I could help out with my pictures down in the screen on the slide, and I apologize for that. I don't think it's going to let me move it anywhere. Nope, that didn't work. Okay. Well, anyway, hopefully you got the gist of what I was saying. But once you have that game plan, it's going to help you be more prepared for that college admissions process. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is resumes. This is a very simple outline of what I use, and I know that it feels very complicated to think about how do you create a resume. And everybody's first thought is, okay, we create it like a traditional resume that you would submit for a job application. And there's not anything wrong with doing it that way. I prefer to have students do it the way that the Common App, the Coalition app, all the UC app, the schools are asking for it, because what's going to happen is that when you already have this laid out into a paper format, it's much easier for them to just transform it or move it over into the Common App, the Coalition, whatever applications they're applying for, without having to rewrite a bunch of things. When you do it the other way, you're creating two completely different resumes. The other thing is that this is how colleges look at it. They want to see the resume in this format, meaning that they're wanting to know the activity, they want to know the awards, they want to know where you have volunteered, they want to know, have you had any summer jobs? There's all these different categories. And so we go through and we put those categories. Then they want to know, what years did you participate? Did you participate 9, 10, 11, 12? Did you just do it 11, 12? Did you just do it 10th grade only? And so they want to know which years that your student participated. Then they want to know how many hours a week and how many weeks a year that your child participated. This is what the Common App, this is what every application is asking for. And all the students just, when we start this process, and look at me totally blankly like, well, I don't know how many hours a week. And then you've got to figure out, was this activity a full year? Was it just a school year? Was it a summer activity? Did you do it 1 semester, 2 semesters? I always tell the kids there's no resume police that's going to come out and say, you put in 1 hour too much or 2 hours too much. But the reality is that, while you can estimate a little bit on those numbers, you've got to make sure that it's pretty close to what you actually participated, because otherwise you're not being honest and true. And when you send in that application at the back end, you're submitting, you're checking a box, and your student is signing and saying that everything that they have done is their work and it is true, and that they have not falsely added any information. And they can have their application, their acceptances revoked. They can get in trouble in a lot of different ways by not doing things honestly on an application. So when they're translating this, if you've built it out in a regular resume, then you typically aren't doing this. The other thing is that in the last category is a description and responsibilities. On these Common Apps, all the different ones, you only have so many spaces for one thing. You only have about, 50 characters, 49 characters, and that's hardly enough to really explain something, that might need to be explained, or really share, some leadership or something to that you had. So this gives you room to write additional things. So there are a few other categories that I have students add on that are not included on the Common App. And so what happens is that they fill in these blanks where it asks for the activities, the awards, the volunteerism, their jobs, the summer activities. It asks for all of that on there. It gives them a limited amount of space to do that. But then there's a place on the applications that you can upload a resume. So when you upload it, then it's much easier for the college admissions counselor to say, oh, I'm just going to download this and I'm going to use this resume because they have the exact same format that we used in the Common App. So that's a little bit of an explanation of why I have the students do it this way, and not just doing it a different way. You do not want to add a picture. So that is a definite no. Don't add a picture, and you want to keep it around 2 pages. So that's about what you're looking for in the resume. So you're following the same format that the applications have set out. You want to keep it 2 pages max. And you want to, if it has to go to 3, if a student has a ton, but if they do, we need to look at that and see what we can condense and how we can really try to get it onto those 2 pages if possible. And you do not include a picture or anything to that effect on your resume. Now, I do have students include GPA and test scores if they're really strong. If they're not, we do not do that. Okay, so that's a little bit about the resume. It's pretty simple. They can start working on this their freshman year and just add to it every year so that they're not behind. That's always a great way to not have to go back and remember everything from your freshman year on. But if you're a junior, then we are going to have to rack our brains to go back to that freshman year and make sure we get it all in there. Okay, letters of recommendation. So I want to spend a little bit of time on this. So There are officially two types of letters that come from a school. Now there's a third type, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the two types that are coming from the school and what they are required to have and what the schools are looking for is, one is your counselor's recommendation. Your counselor's recommendation compares you to the rest of the student body academically and socially. So basically, your counselor is going to be given a form that they're going to go in and fill out from an academic standpoint. They're going to pull all that information from your academic record and answer questions. They ask, to rate the student on a scale to 1 to 10. Then the counselor can add a letter of recommendation. So it's important that your student gets to know your counselor, because if they don't, they're either not going to write this letter, or they're going to pretty much give a general kind of form type letter that they have for the student, or they might not even give the student a good recommendation just because they don't know the student. So I always tell kids, it's really important that you go in and get to know your counselor. Now I get it. I've had students who've gone in, got to know their counselor, and then by their senior year, that counselor has moved to a different school or changed jobs or is no longer there, or the school restructured the whole class, and now they have a new counselor, and then they're starting over, and they can't get when the counselor's recommendation cannot come from somebody outside the school or a counselor that is not your student's counselor. So make sure that you're getting on your good side. You're letting that counselor know who you are so that you're getting a good recommendation from them. The second type of recommendation letter comes from the teachers. I typically tell students they need to ask for 3. Some teachers are good at getting those to you. Some take a little longer to get them to you. But basically what they're going to do is they're going to highlight how you distinguish yourself in the classroom. You're uniquely you. So with both of these two different types of recommendations, you're going to want to give them a copy of your resume in the fall when they get ready to write the letter. So somebody had asked me this yesterday, so I wanted to make sure to answer this today. Typically May, the beginning of May, the end of April, mid-April, like right after Easter, all the way to May is when, through May or end of school, is when you're going to want to ask your junior students are going to want to ask their junior teachers for letters of recommendation. Some teachers only give so many, they'll only do for so many kids. And what you got to remember is that they're not being paid to do this. This is something they're doing on their own. So you want to make their job as easily as possible. And so I'll talk in a minute, because we always want to give them letter of recommendation packets. And so I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the third type, which is not on here, is, before I go on to that, back to the teachers. I want you to ask 3 teachers, because some teachers are better than others at getting those done. Now, just know when you're asking your junior teachers to write those letter recommendations, they're not going to write them this year. Typically they're not. You might have a teacher that's really on top of it and gives it to you, but even if they give you a physical copy, they're going to have to fill out the information on the Common App, because it's all done electronically for all schools on the Common App, all schools on the Coalition app, a lot of the other applications. They have to ask the teachers and they have to email them, and they go on to the website and fill out the information. So what you're doing is saying, will you fill this out for me next fall? And then in the fall, you will go to them and remind them and say, hey, Ms. Smith or Mr. Jones, I asked you about filling out a letter of recommendation. You said you would. I wanted to let you know that I'm getting ready to apply for my schools. Here's my packet of recommendation for you to help you with that. It's kind of a gentle reminder to them. And then at that point, you can add them to your Common App, get those teachers to fill out those application letters of recommendation for you. Okay, so now the third type is what we call other. So the other goes into somebody that is maybe outside of your school. Now, when they ask for a teacher recommendation, these teachers need to be current teachers. They need to be at your school and teachers that really know you. That's really an important piece. Okay. The last couple of years, because of students learning online and so forth, we had seniors who were having to ask teachers from their sophomore years because their junior teachers really didn't know them. But now that everybody's back in school full time, that's not the case. So for everybody in this group, you're going to want to ask your junior teachers. Okay, get that from them. And then when it said, that's what it's called, other recommendation, that can be somebody that's an affiliate, maybe your boss from your job, maybe it's somebody who's an alumni at one of the universities you're applying to, maybe it's somebody politically tied, maybe you're close friends with your congressman or they know you, or maybe you worked with a professor at a university, or something to that effect. A really strong family friend can write those other recommendation letters. Typically you only need one, and some schools don't even allow those to be sent in, but you cannot send in what they consider an other. Another would also would include any of your arts teachers. So if you're in choir, theater, journalism, you're doing some kind of film on the side, maybe you're a sports kid, any of those coaches, those are all considered other recommenders. So your main teachers have to come from your core academic classes, meaning math, science, English, and history. Those are the four. And if you're going into STEM, then you're going to want to make sure two of those three are from the STEM area. Otherwise, you can have the three from any of the three disciplines. I always suggest you have at least one math science teacher. That just is great, and helps with the overall recommendations. Okay. You are going to prepare packets of recommendations to give to your teachers in the fall. You're going to include your resume. You're going to want to show you're uniquely you. How do you do that? What do you want to put on a brag sheet that's going to let them know who you are? Tell your story in that so that they know what you've done. Example of that is that my daughter, her senior year, as she was going through, she was pretty known in her school. She went to a pretty good sized school. She was in theater and choir. And that was where she spent all of her time. I mean, she had leads in the musicals and was on show choir and the whole 9 yards. So her teachers knew that she did theater because they had seen her in plays and knew that she did, the musicals and things like that. What they didn't know was that she performed professionally, that she had designed costumes, that she choreographed musicals. So when she put all of that into her resume and into that brag sheet and into the information to those packets, the teachers were able to say, wow, I didn't know you did all of that. So then when they wrote her letter, they were very tailored to her out versus being more generic of like, yeah, she's involved in the fine arts department here at our school. That would be the difference. I will tell you, you're not going to be able to read your child's letters of recommendation. There's all kinds of FERPAs and releases and rules, and technically they're not allowed to share those with you. So the schools want those to be kept private. Sometimes teachers do share them, but they're not really technically supposed to do that. So just know you're not going to read them. So you're going to make sure you're asking people who are going to give your child, who like your child, who your child's participated in classroom with them, and they feel that connection with them. Okay. And again, that's where I talk about the bottom where I say, waive your rights to view your recommendations. So that's on the on the Common App, all of it. When you go in and you invite your recommenders, it says, I waive my rights to review my recommendation letters. If you do not say yes to that, then the schools will not really consider them because they feel like the teacher or the person giving the recommendation letter is not going to be truthful or is completely honest in their evaluation. So just know that that's a big thing. And going forward, if you've had obstacles, then you're going to want to explain those again. We're not going to talk about oh, poor me, this is what happened. We state, this was the fact, and this is how I grew from it, and this is how I overcame it. And, this is where I'm at, something to that effect. And again, this packet is not going to be 40 pages because your teachers aren't going to read those. So you want to have the resume, you want to have a couple of pages of a brag sheet, and you want to have a cover letter that tells them all the schools you're applying to and why, what your major is, and so forth. So that's what goes into those packets. Do not compare yourself to a specific classmate. Do not say, in your class in biology, I have really grown and I feel like that my GPA compared to my classmates' GPA, shows my strength in your class. That's comparing. Make sure you're just talking about yourself, because a teacher knows they don't need you to compare to the other competitive students in your class. Okay. I mean, I think that goes without being said, but I've seen that. So that's why I included in there. Don't highlight qualities that are expected of you. If the teacher expects you to show up in class, the teacher expects you to turn your homework in on time. So you don't want to say, oh, one of my great qualities is that I turn my homework in every week on time. That's expected of you. That's not something out of the, normal. If you're not turning your homework in on time, then you don't need to be asking for a letter of recommendation from that teacher. And don't send requests by email or just put them down on an application without asking them. So right now, there was a period when the teachers were having to be asked by email because we were in an online environment. Now we're back in school. So you need to physically, no matter how shy your child is, they have to get out of that comfort zone. They need to go in and they need to ask the teachers for those letters of recommendation. Okay. So hopefully that all makes really good sense. Now we're going to move from there into when to apply. So there are different application plans. I've talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to go into a little more detail. So the first is early decision binding. So this means that you're applying to the earliest deadline that they have, and you're signing some kind of legal document that says that if they accept your student into the university, that you will attend. Okay. There are ways to, if the financial package is not where it needs to be, you potentially can get out of that binding decision. But for the most part, you have to go into that not expecting that to be the case, expecting that that's where your child's going to go. There's also early action restrictive, which requires some legal signing. So just make sure you're reading when you pick a deadline, that you're reading the fine print, so to speak, and that you know what you're signing before you sign it. Now, early action non-binding, and we're seeing more and more students do this, but this is an earlier date. They get their applications in and they're going to get their decisions back sooner. One thing to remember is that early action is more competitive. So there are times that I think for some students, holding off to regular priority or just regular decision might be a better choice for a specific school. But as a whole, they want to make sure they want to work toward hitting those early action and get those in. Early action shows more intent to potentially acceptance at that school. They want to be able to accept those students so that they can start filling their roster. So early action is definitely something that should be on your radar and on your list for 90% of your schools. Okay. Then we have priority or fast track. So there are some schools, especially some that are a little less competitive, that will say, hey, we've sent your child an email. We really want your child to come to our school. If they apply by this priority deadline, we're going to waive the fees for them to, every application has an application fee. We're going to waive those fees, and this is our priority deadline, or we're going to fast track your application and get it in sooner. So your child might and possibly will get some letters in the mail or their email or something to that effect that says that. And so just keep that in mind. Like I said, those are typically smaller schools, private schools, and schools that are not quite as competitive. So they're wanting to, really reach those kids before they're making, decisions to go to other schools. Regular decision is just what it is. Most of the deadlines for regular decision are January. And then once they're in, once they've got those, all of those applications in, then they're going to make decisions. You're going to find out those regular decisions by around this time, March, April is when you're going to find those out. So that's really the different types of application plans that are out there. And let's talk about when and why you would choose one or another over something. So early decisions, generally November 1st, November 15th, sometimes December 1, but usually November 1st. We even have an October 15th deadline for a couple of schools. So just know when it says early, it means early. Be certain that it's your first choice. Early decision students are admitted at a higher rate to this pool for sure, but it's also the most competitive. So if your child is not in a really competitive position for a university, then applying early decision is not a good idea because they're going to be competing against those really, really competitive kids and may or may not. Well, they probably won't get accepted. They might get deferred or automatically denied because they're not at the same academic level. So you've got to make sure you're at a specific academic level for that particular school and that you know it's absolutely what you want to do. And then percentage of classes accepted varies from school to school. All of that data is inside of the tools that I use with my students, but you can also go into the school's website and search that information out. Okay. Now, do not apply early decision if you're not 100% sure. If you're like, I need to look at all my financial aid packages. I want to see what offers I'm going to get, that type of stuff. You want your senior year grades to be considered. Again, if you're not in the academically competitive group and you need your senior year grades, then that's probably not the best way to go. You need to take an SAT or an ACT in November or December. Maybe your scores aren't where you need them to be. And so you're still wanting to take that score and you want the test to count, then you're going to need to pull back on that. And then if you need financial aid or want to compare multiple schools, you do not want to apply early decision. Okay, apply early action when you have strong academic credentials or you're going to be somewhat competitive for the group and you do not need your senior year grades. So that's something to keep in mind. You've completed all your testing. You've got solid test scores. You know what they are, and you have adequate time to submit a well-considered application. If you're starting this process in August and you haven't done anything and you're just quickly throwing together an application, that's not a smart thing to do. It's better to take the extra time and go regular decision, even though, early decision might be better. You just got to make sure you're putting in a really strong application. A lot of students forget, and I hear this, they'll say, well, I can deal, the application part is not the part that's hard. I can handle that. I can handle, these various pieces. And I think they can. I'm not saying that, but there really are nuances, and knowing how to fill out these applications correctly, knowing what to check, when to check it, making sure that list is really strong for your student. All of those things can affect positively or negatively on your student. So I want you to just keep in mind that it is more than just, these applications are not just filling out demographics. I mean, every question on there is on there for a purpose and a reason, and it does play into the academic decision of whether your child's accepted or not, or the overall decision. Okay. Now, rolling admissions is basically, did I skip one? Sorry, let me make sure I didn't. Okay. Rolling decision is when, and we didn't talk about this much, but these are schools that you apply all year round. So if you're applying early decision, early action, and even some schools that are regular decision, it depends on the school. Basically what happens if they have a November 1 deadline, you're submitting everything goes into that like computer, but they don't look at, decide, make decisions, anything on those applications until that November 1's in. Once all the applications are in, then they begin to go in and begin to look at it. So they're not going to go, you submitted November 1's our deadline. You submitted October 1. I'm going to look and consider you and give you an answer ahead of time. So they look at everybody at one time. They go through a complete review of everybody who submitted on those particular deadlines. So a rolling admission means that they're not doing that. These are definitely schools that are not competitive as far as they can be amazing schools. There are some really good schools that are out there and that are really right for some students, but they just have a rolling decision. So whenever you submit your application, they look at it and they decide if you're in or out. And they do that until their class is full. Once their class is full, then they stop accepting applications. So that is what a rolling admission is. Okay, now I've talked about all various kinds of applications. I've talked about the Common App. I've talked about the Coalition. So I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So these are the big main applications that you hear a lot about. It's the Common App, the Coalition, and the Universal. The Universal app only has about, I don't even, it's got a very few, it's got a small handful of schools, and they're typically all Ivies. Most students will never use the Universal app. It's almost obsolete in some respects, except for, like I said, a small handful of schools that use them. So if you're applying to an Ivy school, you might use the Universal app, but otherwise you won't. The Common App is the most common one that you hear about. And not every school is on the Common App. So what happens as a university, I have the decision to make. Am I going to pay Common App or pay the Coalition or some other institution app for my application to be hosted on their site? So if I don't want to do that, then you're not going to be applying to my school through the Common App or Coalition. We have schools like MIT that have not been on the Common App prior because they make you go through their own site on their website. So your child literally can be filling out applications at 4, 5, 6 different places in order to make sure they're getting all of them done. So the Common App has the most schools on there. So with the Common App, they go in, they apply, and they have one basic application within it where they go through and fill out a big majority of information. And then every school has its own separate application on the Common App with it. It's called supplemental questions, essays, and application, and they'll go through that as well. And all of those are different. So it's not the same. Every school is different. Every school can have different numbers of essays, different requirements, different things they're asking for. So just know that it's not just this one simple sit down and fill out an application and it's done. And I know that this is going to sound like really, but it is true that even on these applications, the way you answer some of these questions can affect negatively or positive. That's why when I work with my students in the groups and in my one-on-one coaching and all of that, I walk through every question with the students to make sure they're answering them appropriately and correct for them and who they are, and to make sure that it's not that they're really getting that information in a way that's going to help them stand out in the process. The Coalition app is just like the Common App. It's just got different schools on it. So if you're applying to the University of Washington, if you're applying to University of Texas, if you're applying to a lot of different other schools, they're only on the Coalition. So let's say you're applying to MIT, Washington, and let me think, let's say Georgia. So you're going to be using the Common App, the Coalition app, and their personal website. So you've got 3 applications that you're filling out with that, in addition to all of the specifics for each one of those schools. So unfortunately, some kids are fortunate, I guess, that they get only the Common App, or some kids have to use multiple different applications to fill out to get all the information in. And I will tell you, this year, Coalition just announced if your school uses something called SCORI, it's SCORI, SCOIR, sorry, SCOIR. I'll get it right in a second, score. Then it ties in with coalition. So that's going to be a new trend we see going on. So just keep that in mind. Also, the Common App, on the Common App, there's a what they call your FERPA, and that's where you go in and invite your recommenders and your teachers and your counselors. So if your school uses Naviance, then you don't do it on the Common App. It'll tell you you have to go into your school, go through Naviance, fill out all the things that they want on Naviance, and request your transcripts and teachers' recommendation letters and so forth there. And each school has their own guidelines that they want to have you do during that, but you're still going to give those letter of recommendation. So I know it's convoluted. I wish there was an easy way that everybody was like, there's one application, you fill this out, it goes to every school. But that's just not the way it is, because every school has different guidelines and different things that they're looking for. So they put those things in the application and you just have to go through that. Then on top of that, we have state and other system applications. So we have the UC system. So basically the UCs has all of the University of California schools on it. They're filling out one application. But again, some of these schools can have other requirements that go in there. And not all California schools are on it. So you got to remember that if, there's actually two different applications within California. And there's also, if you're applying to University of Southern California, or if you're applying to any of the other private schools, Stanford, they're going to be on Common App, or they're going to be somewhere else. So even in California, you're not filling out one application that goes everywhere. It depends on the school, depends on if it's a state school or if it's a university school, as to which application and all of the nuances that go with that. And they have the 5 insight questions, which are basically 5 essays, which is, again, a pretty huge part of that application. We have, like the Texas, we have the Apply Texas. So if you're going to apply to schools in Texas, you can go and fill out the Apply Texas. Again, it's got all the schools in Texas on it, but it doesn't include schools outside of Texas. The schools in Texas are also on the Common App and the Coalition app, depending. So you have to have an organization system. For me, I use a program called Guided Path, which all of my students have access to, including the parents and the students. And it provides all the data, the research you need for every single school that you're applying to. It has every school in the entire United States in it. It's got huge research capabilities, that type of thing. It has an organization system where we go through and we tell what is due, what is expected, and we're able to put basically a homework checklist together for your students so they know what is due when. But I bring that up because within there, we're able to, there's one section where we can pull up all the schools the students applying to and see how many are on the Common, who's on the Coalition, how can we narrow these down to the least number of applications possible. So that's what you're going to want to do. If you're doing it on your own, you're going to need to look at every school. What platforms are they paying for, or what platforms do they allow you to apply through? And I know, like I said, this can feel a little overwhelming, but hopefully it makes sense, understanding that there's just the two various different kinds. So do we have any questions? Let's make sure I'm not missing any questions from anybody. That's important, because we're going to move on to the financial impact. If you have questions, you can drop them in and I'll make sure to answer them. But I wanted to kind of wrap that piece up before I move into the financial piece. So I know that everybody's concerned about finances, money, schools. We know there's going to be an increase in tuition. I'm going to talk a little bit about a Pell Grant, the FAFSA, and the CSS profile. There's so much to the financial part of this, but these are the things that I want to hit on a high level so that you kind of are aware and you know what to look for as you're going through this process. So why are colleges raising tuition? Obviously, for years, that's just been the case. They're having, especially coming out of the last 2 years, they have been hit economically. And I know we're thinking, okay, it costs tens of thousands of dollars already. So why, why do they need more, more money? But the reality is that they're still paying for teachers. They're still paying for staff. They have to pay for electricity, for housing, for all the different programs. I mean, a college's budget is massive, and they still need to be able to provide scholarships, grants, money, and so forth to students to be able to come to their university. So as we're moving forward and their costs are going up, and as we see different prices, whether it's their the utilities at a particular school going up, or any of those other things. I mean, obviously, right now we know that the food, our groceries are more expensive. So they're providing, food on campus to a large number of students. So that cost for them goes up as well. So, there are reasons that tuition rate is going up, and we're going to see that continue probably over the next couple of years. So you do want to look at a school and know, when your student chooses that particular school, does that tuition rate lock, or is it unlocked, meaning that it can go up every year? And so you want to understand what you're signing before you sign it, and make sure that you're going to be locked in at a specific price over the next 4 years, or should you expect an increase each year that your child's in college? So that's just something for you to keep in mind. And I do want to say, I am not a financial planner or advisor. I do provide lots of resources. So that's why in my program, I offer all kinds of scholarship resources. I bring in experts that do walkthroughs of the FAFSA with all of my families, where, you're not having to pay somebody else. They're walking you step by step, line by line through the FAFSA, because it can be overwhelming. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But, I try to provide as many resources as I can, even though I'm not a particular financial planner, but I do have people on my team that do that. So if it's something you're interested, or you need more help in that respect, that is something that I have as well. But, I try to give as many resources as possible for my families, so that you're able to figure it out, kind of determine where your budget is and what you're going to get, and so forth. So the Pell Grant. We did see an increase in 2021 by $150. That's not very much, but it's a couple of books. So, there was an increase in that to receive a Pell Grant. So a grant money is free money. The Pell Grant comes from the government, and it is based on income. So for most people, you have to have what they call an estimated family contribution number of 5,846 or lower, which means that you're probably making under $50,000 a year to qualify for that. Okay, there are other types of grants that your student very well could get if they're applying to the right schools. So there are schools that have a higher tuition, and they have more endowment money. So they give, university grants is what they call them, to students of middle to upper middle class as well. So I see students a lot of times walk away with $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 grant money. It's not a scholarship, but it does not have to be paid back. So you want to look at your financial aid. Anything that says the word grant on it is a much better situation. When it comes to loans, you want to know that the ones that are offered by the government that are either low income, or the Stafford loan. The Stafford loan is offered to every student regardless of income. Every student will get either what they call subsidized or unsubsidized. And I'm not going to get into what all that means right now, but your student will get at least $5,000 that is a loan in that student's name. And every year that loan amount goes up. It goes up to like 6,000 and something their sophomore year, in the 7,000s their junior year, and in the $8,000 range their senior year. So every year it goes up for them, and those loans are in the student's name. So when the student graduates, they're the ones that have to pay it back. Okay. Now, when you get your financial aid package, you're going to get this big letter that says, congratulations, here's your award letter. And you're going to look, and it's going to look like everything is paid for. You've got, wow, all the money's there you need. And what you're looking for is that they're going to have on there what's called a parent loan. And a parent loan is something that goes through the school, it goes through the government. They do try to have a better interest rate, but again, I'm not a financial planner, so you have to look at loans and talk to your banks and talk to somebody else about all of that. I'm just giving you the overall details of it. But a parent loan is in the parent's name. It is for the student, and the student is on the loan, but you are basically the co-signer. You are responsible for that loan if your student doesn't pay for it. So just know that you are going to be offered a parent loan everywhere you go. So that's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it means, what a grant is, what you know what a scholarship is, what financial aid is, and the difference in the type of loans that are going to be offered. So any of the loans that are like a Perkins loan or anything that comes through the government are going to be the lowest interest possible. And those loans will be in your student's name. So the Stanford loan, the Perkins loan, those type of things are going to be in your student's name. Okay. Now, what is the FAFSA? We know what that is. It's a financial aid application, and every school requires it for your student to get any financial aid. Now, we'll tell you, because people say, well, we're not going to qualify, so what's the point in doing it? There are some schools that will require you to do it before they give out scholarship money. And it's because they have some low income scholarship money and some that's merit based. And if your student qualifies for low income scholarship versus non, then they want to spread out that money so that everybody's getting some of that scholarship money. If you don't fill it out, they're not going to consider you for financial aid or for scholarships. I'm sorry, for scholarships. So that's one thing. Another thing is, let's say that you don't fill it out this year. You can't, and you go back and you try to do it the next year. Maybe something happened, you have a loss in income, and you haven't filled it out your freshman year, then that affects negatively, and sometimes you can't fill it out. So you don't want to skip that year unless you know that you have enough money in the bank to cover all 4 years. It's all set aside, and you don't care if you're paying full price. So basically, two students can be sharing a dorm room and they won't pay the same thing for college out of pocket because of all the financial different things that go into that. So if your student is one that you say, I don't want to fill out the financial aid, we're not going to worry about scholarships, any of those things, I'm willing to pay the full sticker price of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, whatever that is, then you might not need to. But if you want to have any of that at any point in time, then you're going to need to fill out the FAFSA form. It's just part of the, process, and something you just have to do. Again, we talked about this is going to allow your student to get the student loans if they qualify for them, parent loans for the bigger amounts, and grant money, and sometimes scholarships. Okay. Now, there's one other form that you may or may not have heard of. It's called the CSS profile. And this is used by most private schools. So basically, it's through the College Board. And when you're applying to private schools, you can actually go to the CSS profile. You can just type that in, Google it. It'll come up on the College Board, and you can look at all the schools that require that form. So they go in and they do a more in-depth look at your finances, and they take into account if you have kids in private school or boarding schools, what are your credit card bills, what are your other finances. So it can be it's just a more in-depth look because they're giving out more money, and so they're trying to get a more realistic picture of your complete financial situation, which would allow them to give you those university grants and other money that could be out there. So sometimes you will need to fill this out. Both the FAFSA and the CSS profile are opened in October, and you want to get them in as soon as possible. So you can actually get those done even before your child submits their application. So that's the parents guide. That's your job in this process. So just know that these things need to be on your radar. Okay. So I saw somebody say great information. You're welcome, guys. So hopefully this has been somewhat helpful for you as you're moving forward. So I wanted to, jump back in. I would love the opportunity to work with any of you that want to work with me. So last night I talked through um, you know, the process, the reasons that people work with a consultant. I will tell you, as a consultant, I have private clients, I have my group coaching, I have my parent groups, I have done for you courses, I have a la carte different programs. So, I share with you my big two main programs, and I will go back through those really quickly tonight. But if you're looking to work with somebody and you need help, whatever that is, you can send me an email, reach out to me. I want to be there to support and help you. You can obviously stay into our free groups. I want you to do that as well. And I try very hard to give out lots of great information. But the reality is that this process is so complicated. It's not just about filling out an application and sending it off, or just thinking if I get really great essays, that's going to make the difference, because a really great essay can help. But if you don't have all the other pieces lined up, then it's not going to possibly be enough at some of these really, really competitive schools. And you're looking at students who are extremely competitive, who are hiring consultants and working with us in this industry. And so we just know the ins and outs. We're there talking to the schools, the counselors, we're on the campuses. So we're aware of what the changes are, what the schools are looking for. Now, we can't guarantee admission to any particular school. And if any counselor tells you that, then I would run as fast as you can the other direction because there's something not going on right there. So just know there's no guarantees. But what we can do is we can help your child get through this process in a smoother way, help them stand out, help them create the best application and present themselves in the best view they can, which definitely in turn relates back to more money and more acceptances. So just keep that in mind. So I have the two programs. One is Purposeful Parent. The other is Valedictorian. The Purposeful Parent is exactly what it says it is. It is a program for college-bound teens, and it's for parents of college-bound teens. Any grade level can do this. It's a monthly program, and when you come in, every month I come in, I give your student an action plan. We meet on Zoom, and it's a private group. I go in, I do a training, I bring in guest experts. We talk about whatever is important and needs to be talked about that month. If something changes in the application process, you're going to know it immediately because I'm going to let you know that. And you're going to be able to have access to me to ask those questions. I always have a Q&A at the end. And I know that my parents that are in the Purposeful Parents are all love the group and love what they get out of it. Everything's recorded. So if you miss a group, you can come back, you can watch it. We have a private Facebook group where you can ask questions, connect with me there. You get your own online portal, which comes with a resource vault that has some online courses in there. You get my book, and you get me walking by your side. But the best part is that you are going to get, in addition to that, my scholarship training program that I have created, and a database of scholarships that your student can begin to apply for. So as freshmen, sophomore, juniors, these outside scholarships are hard to get. And you have to have a plan, and you have to have an organization part put in place. And so that's what I give you so that you can start that early. And even some of the bulk of them are bulk of scholarships you apply for your senior year. If you wait till your senior year and you don't have them organized and in a plan, your students just aren't going to do them. You think they are, it's all, positive thoughts. But the reality is that it's so complicated. If you don't have it organized, you're going to just miss a lot of those scholarships and not be able to get them applied. So if you want to be part of that program, it is $99 a month. and you're getting about a $5,500 value for a year of time spent with me. There is no long-term commitment. You can join, and if you decide that it's not right for you, then you just can send in a cancellation, and that's not a problem. But I have a good rate, and the people in my purposeful parent stay in the purposeful parent because they're getting so much value from that. So I would love, if you're a parent and you want to join that, it's $99 a month, and I will share the link in a minute, which you can choose which program you're interested in if you want one of these. Now, my seniors is my valedictorian program. I talked about this last night. It's a personalized group coaching program. So I cannot emphasize enough that this is a very personalized, hands-on hybrid program. So while your student is in a group and I am there teaching in this group, setting, your student has multiple ways to reach me, speak to me privately, get questions answered, and so forth. For me, it's very much about making sure that your student is successful in this process. So you're not going to have to worry. I'm going to hold your student accountable. If your child's shy, I know how to help your child move out of that and to still be included into the conversation, to make sure that they're not missing out on any important parts of that. If your student's outgoing, they're going to be fine. The groups do not have a cap on them, but I will say this, that there are specific times I do a full essay workshop. And so during those times, I'm breaking those groups down into small numbers. So we know based on what we're doing in the process, as to how many students we can handle in the group. And it's myself and my team that's there with me. So your student will have a lot of expert guidance in there with my overall direction. And like I said, they have access to me specifically. So again, there's 12 lessons that are specifically geared to, like, when I say a lesson, I mean, like, okay, we're going to develop out their uniquely you. We're going to create their resume. We're going to create their letters of recommendation packets. We're going to do a essay workshop. We're going to do interviews. We're going to do a whole lesson on how to fill out the Common App, how to fill out the coalition. So all of those are main lessons. But in addition to that, they're going to have open hours where they come in and they can sit and they can go through and ask anything they want. So come August 1, when application season opens, your student is sitting with me every week and getting things done. The goal is to have everything completed by mid-October. That is the goal I set for them. They have deadlines. They have dates that they are expected to get things done. And I'm holding them accountable for that, which is the kids love and the parents love it as well. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that this, even though this is group, it is online, it is also hybrid, and there is a lot of personalization to that, a lot of going back and forth. We edit and look at every single essay. There is not an essay that leaves and goes to a school that I have not personally put my hands and eyes on, as well as one of my other consultants that works with me in the program. So we're making sure that those things are done and they're done well. So that's a good thing for you to just keep in mind, that that's going on. Again, there's all of these different things that are there, but I want to make this a complete package. So you obviously are still getting the prep in a box, which is a complete test prep. So if your child hasn't started test prep, or maybe they're trying to raise a science or a math or an English, like one score, this is an online program that has been created by my friend Teresa, and she is owner of Pueblo's test prep tutoring, and she is amazing. She knows her stuff. The kids that I have that work with her see their scores shoot up by a tremendous amount. So therefore, she took all her knowledge and it's in this particular course. So you're going to have access to that and be able to just jump in and really focus on getting those scores where they need to be. And then on the back end, your student is getting access to an entire scholarship program, and which includes other financial aid pieces. So just know they're going to have scholarship databases along with other resources, the guided path, which is the online, it's basically a CRM for those of you know what that is, but it's like a very college based with tons and tons of other information that your student will be able to access and keep on time and hit all of their deadlines. If you have questions about this, you can definitely drop it into the comments and I'll be glad to try to answer. If you have a question, somebody else may be having the same one. The cost is $39.97. And your student is with me from now until May 1st. May 1st is National Decision Day. And so, and really beyond, if something happens and you need to reach out to me, I'm over the summer, I'm going to answer those questions for those kids. I'm not going to leave somebody hanging, but $39.97 for the amount of hours, for the amount of program, and for all the things that your student is going to get is pretty amazing. So the valedictorian comes with 3 hours of private coaching to begin with. So we use those 3 hours when we need to talk with your student. Maybe we need to hone in on their college list, or they're struggling with their major, but we typically use them around the time when we're talking about essays and really dive into those. And so just know that that does come with that as well. And there's 2 different payment options. Now, if you join by tonight at midnight, so you have through midnight tonight, for both Purposeful Parent and the valedictorian program, I'm adding 3 bonus hours of college admissions coaching. So Purposeful Parents, you can use that anytime for whatever you need through the process. For those of you who do valedictorian, that would give you 6 hours, which is a tremendous amount of hours one-on-one if you need them. And literally your student may or may not even use all 6, but having those 6 definitely will be an asset to you to use when you need them. So you've got the group coaching, all of the stuff, plus some one-on-one hours to really hone in on anything that your student needs honed in on. Okay. So that's a lot, I know. And there's the 3 hours goes away tonight at midnight. The program will close the doors on Tuesday. So you can still sign up on Saturday, Sunday, Monday night. I'm doing a special bonus class. You have to register, so check your emails. And I'm going to walk you through how to create a college list, and you're going to see the software I use in action. So that's pretty cool. But that's Monday night. So but tonight the bonus goes away. So if you want the bonus, then you have to go in and sign up by tonight at midnight. And you want to do that so you get those extra hours. Then I wanted to share a couple of different testimonies, and I'm going to just kind of like pull these open and let you look at them. This was Karen. Her daughter's a senior this year. She was in Purposeful Parent for an entire year, and then she moved over to valedictorian. Her daughter is doing amazing things, being very successful in the process. And then Jennifer, her son, he was in the group coaching program the year before, and definitely had really great, you can see scholarships, acceptances, and those things. But today has been a big day. The last couple of days, right now, we have a lot of decisions coming out. And so I wanted to share with you just because I'm so proud of them and I want to just share. But this is the text message, and you can see I've got my phone, so I'm really reading off my text message here. I got this message this morning from one of my students. It said, "Good morning, Dr. Gina. I just wanted to update you with how college decisions are going so far. I've gotten accepted to Florida State plus honors program, University of Florida plus honors, UNC Chapel Hill, University of Notre Dame, and University of Virginia. In addition, I interviewed for the CSS program for UNC and used the tips from the video you shared with me. As a result, my interview went well and I received a full scholarship to UNC. Thank you so much for all your help over this application season. None of this would have been possible without you." So that warmed my heart. I was just super, super excited when I got this one. And then I got one from a parent that had a screenshot that said, "Congratulations, University of Georgia." This particular student, this was their number one choice, and we had to really work in some areas to really help the student really stand out. And they were very specific on the schools they were applying to, and they actually got into all of the schools they applied to. But the email said, "We saw fireworks today. We have a dog in the house," and said, basically the mom said, we've got 100% acceptance, not too bad. And I'm like, no, not too bad at all. And so I share that because I want you to know this really does work. I know that you kind of have questions, and some people can wonder, like, how does the group sessions work? I've had kids that have gotten into Stanford, to University of Texas, to all, pretty much most every Florida school, you name it, they've been accepted. And from Ivies to private schools and everything in between. And they're in this group. These kids are very connected. And I just wanted to point out, I was reading text messages on my own personal phone from those kids. So again, like I said, you have access to me. I am very accessible. So you're not going to have to worry. Your student's not going to wonder, do I have access to Dr. Gina? And I will say the first student was also, she and her family were also members of Purposeful Parents. So that was exciting to get that text for her, because I've walked with them for a couple of years now. So the programs work. And if you're interested and you want to have somebody walking along beside you, then, I want to be there to be that. I want your child to be successful. And my promise is that you'll feel less stressed, more confident. I'll be there every step of the way. I had a student who's doing performing arts and sent me a message a couple of weeks ago and said, "This waiting is awful. I'm just like, I can't stand it." And, I immediately reached out to the student and said, "I know this is so hard. Hang in there. You're going to get those decisions and you're going to be successful." So it's just knowing that somebody's there when you have those moments that will cheer you on, stand with you, and be your cheerleader. So with all of that being said, you can join, and I know Miss Debbie will drop the link into the chat in both Facebook and YouTube, but it's at acceptedacademy.com. I would love for you to join. And in addition to that, I am also going to be on again in a Zoom room. So last night I had a Zoom room, and if you have questions, if you're wanting to join the program, maybe you've been thinking about it, you have something specific, then I want to make sure that I get those questions answered for you. So I think Miss Debbie is going to drop, I'm hoping, yep, there's the Education Prep Center, and I think she's going to drop in the link to my Zoom room. So I'll stay on for about 15 minutes or so after this to answer any questions that you have about the program, if you're interested in joining in, because I definitely want to make sure that we get those answered. So do we have any questions before I do my drawing? I'm going to still give away another book tonight. And I want to give, bless somebody with that. So if there are any other questions, because I know we've talked about a lot from the application process. I think I answered the question about when to ask teachers for recommendation letters, to the financial part. Were there any questions that you have about anything we've talked about tonight? I'll give you a second to put those in the comments and so I can answer them. While we're doing that, go ahead. If you have questions, put them in. I'll come back to them, but I'm going to go ahead and let me get to it. Share my screen. And I'm going to do a winner for a book. Let's see who wins the book tonight. And in the meantime, like I said, if you have questions, drop them in. Be sure to just go ahead and drop them in. Our winner is Caroline. Woohoo! Is she here today? I couldn't remember if I saw her in the comments or not. It's hard to watch Facebook while I'm doing the training as well. So I'm not sure if Caroline is here tonight, but I know she has been. So if you have questions, I will be glad to answer those. And Caroline will be getting one of my books. So let me stop sharing. I hope this has been really helpful. I hope that you're walking away with lots of great information that, regardless, like I said, I would love for you to work with me. I would love to work with you. I'd love to get a text message from you and your student. If you have juniors next year, that was as exciting as the ones I've gotten today. But, regardless, I want to stay connected. I want to help you, all of those things. So please just know I'm here. I hope that you all have an amazing weekend, and I would love, love, love to see you on Monday night. So there is a link inside of an email. So you're going to watch for an email. You should be getting emails every day from me. Go into the email and make sure that you click on there and sign up, because that will send you a link to the private Facebook group so that you're able to join me over there and get all that information as we build out the college list. And I'll be talking more about the valedictorian and the purposeful parent, answering any questions anybody has. But if you're able and want to join and want those extra 3 bonus hours, they go away at midnight tonight. So basically, just to give you a heads up, technically it's midnight, but when I wake up in the morning, and I will turn that part off, so those hours won't be there. So anybody who purchases, even if it's 2 a.m, it'll count, just as long as it's there before I wake up in the morning and I'm on Central Time. So just keep that in mind. But I would love to have you and give you those bonus hours. So any other questions? Y'all are quiet tonight. No other specific questions from anybody? Cool. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great evening. If you want to jump in to the Zoom, it's in the chat, it's in the comments. So feel free to jump over, ask questions. I'll be there for a few more minutes and answer those. Otherwise, have a great weekend and a blessed weekend. Enjoy your family. And I will see you guys on Monday night. So again, have a great weekend and bye for now.